Hello everyone, Assalamualaikum, greetings. I'm AMIRUL Aiman bin RAZAK together with my group mate KHAERYL IBAD for class TSL425, advised by our handsome Sir Hafiz. We'll be presenting about the Renaissance period, a period from the year 1500 to 1600. In this presentation, we will be talking about some historical backgrounds related to the Renaissance period and some poems created in the Renaissance period. So, without further ado, let's go. So, what are some of the historical background during the period of year 1500 to 1600, the Renaissance period? So the monarchs are King Henry VIII, Queen Mary, and Queen Elizabeth I, and Francis I of France. And famous events during the Renaissance period is Mona Lisa. It was completed by Leonardo da Vinci. The ice cream was invented by an Italian. The Galilean thermometer was invented by Galileo. Shakespeare sets his first footsteps as a legendary poet and writer, and Columbus went for his last journey before his death.
Now, what is Renaissance? Renaissance is a period in European history marking the transition from the Middle Ages to modernity and covering the 15th and 16th centuries. Renaissance is also an effort to revive and surpass ideas and achievements of classical antiquity. And the last Renaissance is the revival of European art and literature under the influence of classical models in the 14th to the 16th century.
So, what is the literature scenes during Renaissance period? The first is the English use of printing press became common by mid 16th century, and and a name that you might hear is Johannes Gutenberg, the man who printed the first Bible. Next is the Elizabethan age, a golden age in English history where the arts, drama, and creative work flourish. Next is the rise of the middle class through the education. So poetry and drama were no longer for the privileged. It can be indulged by everybody, and everybody could create their own artwork to be presented to everyone. Last is Shakespeare is rising with his ability to alternate between different genres while continuously teaching a profound lesson to everybody in all his artworks.
Now, let's move on to both of our poets, which is Sir Philip Sidney and also Christopher Marlowe. For the first one, Sir Philip Sidney, who was born in 1554 and then died in 1586, was born at Penshurst Place, Kent. He was from an aristocratic family, and he was also educated at Shrewsbury School and Christ Church in Oxford. He was also elected as one of the members of a parliament at the age of 18 and traveled around Europe meeting lots and lots of prominent intellectuals and also politicians. He was also a very brave soldier but died a heroic death after fighting for the Protestants against Spanish. And his work, which is his poetry work, includes religious, philosophical, and treatment of life and nature. Moving on to the second poet, which is Christopher Marlowe, who was born in 1564 and then died in 1583. Marlowe was the second child, oldest after the death of his sister, and a son to a shoemaker, which is quite interesting. He was a pupil at the King's School, Canterbury, and Cambridge, and also received his Bachelor of Arts degree in 1584. He had an influence in some of Shakespeare's work, and Shakespeare even paid for his tribute. He was also a government spy, and his death was caused by his treasonous works.
So, I will be reading my poem, the first poem, which is The Passionate Shepherd to His Love by Christopher Marlowe. So, let's start. Come live with me and be my love, and we will all the pleasures prove, that valleys, grove, hills and fields, woods or steepy mountain yields. And we will sit upon the rocks, sing the shepherd feed their flocks, by shallow rivers to those who falls, melodious birds sing madrigals. And I will make the beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies, a cap of flowers and a kirtle, embroidered with all leaves of myrtle. A gown made of the finest wool, which from our pretty lambs we pull, fair lined slippers for the cold, with buckles of the purest gold. A belt of straw and ivy buds, with coral claps and amber studs. And if these pleasures may thee move, come live with me and be my love. The shepherd swain shall dance and sing for thy delight each May morning. If this delights thy mind may move, then live with me and be my love. So we are going to describe the meaning of each stanza. Here we go. So for stanza 1, the speaker of this poem, this passionate shepherd, begins by making the one request of his lover that serves as the basis for the rest of the poem. He at once lives up to his name as he asks his unnamed lover to come live with me. He is hoping that she, upon hearing his request, will leave whatever life she is leaving behind and come be his love wherever he may be. He does not leave her without some idea that what it will be to live with him. In fact, he spends the majority of the rest of the passionate shepherd to his love, describing to his love what her life will be if she agrees. The second half of this first quatrain describes how when the two of them are together with nothing standing between them, and will all the pleasures prove, they will venture out to the world and yield or take from the valleys, groves, hills and fields, or woods, or steepy mountains. Everything they have to offer, there will be nothing in the world from which the couple cannot feel the passion. Moving on to the second stanza, the speaker goes on to describe some day-to-day details of what their lives will be like together. He states that they will sit upon the rocks of this new and beautiful world they are living in together and see the shepherds with their flocks of sheep. They will observe the world that they used to live in and appreciate its intricacies. Due to the fact that their lives are now devoted to one and another and to the world they inhabit, they have time to notice the details around them. They will see and hear the shallow rivers and the melodious birds which sing to the crashing of the falling water. The songs the birds sing will be like madrigals or harmonious pieces of music written for multiple voices. In stanza 3, the shepherd still has a number of different enticements to offer his lover in the hope that she will join him. He describes how he will make her a bed of roses. He will fill her life with flowers by creating for her a kirtle or an outer gown, and a cap which will all be embroidered with the leaves of myrtle, a common flowering shrub. In stanza 4, the passionate shepherd continues on describing the different pieces of clothing and accessories that he will craft for his lover. It is important to remember that all of these items are contingent on her coming to live with him. He will spin for her a gown made of the finest wool from the lambs that they will tend together. His occupation is now working in her favor, and he is able to make her exactly what he thinks and what she wants. He does not neglect her feet and states that she will also have fair-lined slippers that she can wear when it gets cold. Her buckles on the shoes will be made of the purest gold. In the second last stanza, he begins to conclude his offer. He finishes up describing the wardrobe she will be having by describing her gaining a bed of straw and ivy buds. He will also feature coral claps and amber studs. It is clear that the speaker is doing his utmost to find and describe things that he thinks she wants the most. Whether this is the case or not, the reader will never know. In the second half of the stanza, he repeats his request that if only she will live with him, all these pleasures will be hers. Going on to the last stanza is the speaker describes how after she has accepted this offer, shepherds, swains, or their comrades and lovers will dance and sing. all people will be in delight in the fact that they are finally together as they should be. In the last two lines, he repeats, for the third time, his offer. He asks that if these delights move the mind, then she should come live with him and be his love. So moving on to the poetic devices. So how about we go to a simple introduction about the poem. The Passionate Shepherd to His Love is a famous pastoral poem published in 1599. A pastoral poem is to idolize the harmony, peace and simplicity of the shepherd's life. A simple synopsis of the poem is about a young shepherd that expresses his profound love and intense feeling for his love interest, and the poem has won widespread popularity on its everlasting description of love. And some of the themes that I've got from my poem is the theme of beauty. It is not the usual beauty that you are thinking of, beauty of face, the beauty of somebody, or the beauty of everything. It tells you about the beauty of the romantic ideals that is imagined by the shepherd in his idyllic world if his love interest accepts him in her life. Next is the theme of hope. We could see that the shepherd puts thousands of hope in thinking that his love interest will accept him and he will be the happiest man in the world. But I understand the big heartbreak that he will be having if his love interest doesn't accept him. Last is the theme of nature. You could see the poet inserts many nature words such as mountains, rocks, and a river, so we readers could imagine the beautiful scenery and environment while we read. Moving on to the setting of the poem. As it is a pastoral poem, its physical setting is in the countryside. Looking at the main character, a shepherd usually lives in the countryside, not in the city. And next, the temporal setting. The temporal setting is set in the spring season. Where we could prove this spring season statement is when in the poem, the shepherd could produce myrtle flowers from shrubs, and when usually flowers bloom in the spring season. So let us go to the literary devices in my poem. So the first is enjambment. Enjambment is a continuation of a line or a verse without the pause in a couplet of stanza. For example, in my poem, by shallow rivers to whose falls melodious birds sing madrigals. Next is assonance. Assonance, when the repetition of vowel sounds in the same line, such as the sound of in with choral claps and embastats. Next is symbolism. Symbolism is when the poet use some words other than their literal meanings, such as roses. Roses in the poem is symbolized as love, beauty and desire, and the country in the poem is referred by the shepherd, symbolize the peace, tranquility and never-ending hope. Next is alliteration, where the repetition of consonant sounds in the same line, such as the sound of p in and we will all the pleasures prove, and the sound of sh and s in the shepherd's swain shall dance and sing. Next is imagery, when the poet encouraged the use of five senses from the readers, when he used some nature elements such as that valleys, groves, hills and fields, and a gown made of finest wool and a belt of straw and ivy buds. Next is metaphor, when the poet compare between two different objects. For example, in the 8th line, melodious birds sing madrigals. The speaker compares songs of the birds to poems that are set to music. And the last in literary devices is hyperbole. Hyperbole, the poet has used hyperbole in lines 9 and 10 to show how far he can go for his love. For example, I will make the beds of roses and 1,000 fragrant posies. Let us go to the analysis of poetic devices in the Passionate Shepherd to His Love. First, I will be talking to you about the structure. There are 6 stanzas in the poem, each having 4 lines in it, and we could relate it with a quatrain. A quatrain is a 4-line stanza borrowed from Persian poetry. And talking about rhyme, it has a feminine rhyme. It is a type of rhyme in which one or more unstressed syllables follow the stressed syllables. The example for feminine rhymes are love, proof, and feels, and yields. Next is the rhyme scheme. The poem follows the ABAB rhyme scheme. And going on to repetition, there is a repetition of a line, "Come, live with me and be my love," which has created musical quality in the poem. Remember the musical quality that is said in the birds sing madrigals? Yeah, that's it. Last is the iambic tetrameter. It is a type of meter having 4 iambs per line. The poem follows iambic tetrameters such as "Come, live with me and be mine," which we are stressed on the word live, me, and be. So let us go to the last slide in my part. The relation of the poem to the theme. So the first is the poet very skillfully sketches a picture of his love and paints it with his heartfelt emotions and hope. As a desperate shepherd, he tries to win the heart of his lady with materialistic objects and details the things beautifully in his mind, the things that he can provide to her and to give her an ideal life. Next is he also promises that he will treat her like a queen and provides an idyllic picture of what her life could be if she comes with him. So that's all from me. Moving on and giving the baton to KHAERYL. Thank you, everyone.
Alright, let's move on to the second poem entitled "Loving in Truth and Fain in Verse My Love to Show" from Sir Philip Sidney. Now I will recite the poem. Loving in truth and fain in verse my love to show, that she, dear she, might take some pleasure of my pain. Pleasure might cause her read, reading might make her know, knowledge might pity win, and pity grace obtain. I sought fit words to paint the blackest face of woe, studying inventions, find her wits to entertain, of turning others' leaves to see if thence would flow some fresh and fruitful showers upon my sunburned brain. But words came halting forth, wanting inventions to stay. Invention, nature's child, flat step dame, studies slow, and others' feet still seem but strangers in my way. Thus great with child to speak and helpless in my throes, biting my throat pen, beating myself for spite. Fool, said my muse to me, look in thy heart and write. Alright, basically, this poem is a poem to express someone's love to others and using the poem to attract and to impress someone that we are trying to get for us to be our lover one day. Now we will move on to the poetic devices in the poem. Let's start off with the theme. The theme of the poem is love expression, which we can see that Sir Philip Sidney is trying to express his love towards the other person and trying to impress her using this type of writing. Other than that, the form of the poem is only one stanza, and the stanza contains 14 lines. The tone of the poem is hopeful. Why? Because the way that Sir Philip writes it, that he has hope that the other person will be impressed by his writing, the way that he writes and the words that he's trying to express to the other person. The setting of the poem is in 1982, which is in the 16th century, if I'm not mistaken. And the audience of the poem are divided into two, which is the poet's audience, which is originally for Penelope Devereux, which is the daughter of the Earl of Essex, which is the person that Sir Philip Sidney is trying to impress in the first place. For the general audience, is the person that we want to impress as a lover. This relates to us, which is not Sir Philip himself. And the rhyme of the poem is AB, 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 and CD, CD, and the last two lines is E, E. Alright, let's move on to the literary devices that we can find in the poem. And one of them is alliteration, which is the repetition of the consonants. As we can see, the example right here is biting my throat pen, beating myself for spite, which is the repetition of the consonant T. And also now we can see the second example, which is knowledge might pity win and pity grace obtain, which is also the repetition for the consonant T. Now let's move on to the other literary devices, which is assonance. It is a repetition of vowel sounds, as we can see right here. For the two examples, one of them is pleasure might cause her read, reading might make her know, and also of turning other leaves to see if thence would flow. And then the last one for literary devices, which is metaphor, is some fresh and fruitful shower upon my sunburned brain. This is a comparison for his brain, which is uh, tired of figuring out what to write and what to express in his writing, which is his poem and everything. And then the last of the pack, which is the relation between the theme and the poem. As we can see, classical literature is a way to express your emotion, especially in the Renaissance era, where people doesn't really express their emotions straightforward to the other people. They would write in a way where it will attract the others to listen and to understand how they feel, as we can see how Sir Philip Sidney does in his poems, in a way to express his love to the other person. And also we can see that poems can be used to impress and attract someone. Although we can see that Sir Philip Sidney didn't end up with the with Penelope Devereux, but still his poem can attract other people to read his writing, to find that his writing is really impressive in that era. The third one is poem is a form of art in the Renaissance era. As been said before, that classical art literature is highly respected in the Renaissance era, because not everyone is capable of writing those kinds of writings and literature and arts in that time. Only certain people can do that, and the beauty of it is really mesmerizing. And the last one, you can see that this type of art is very appreciated at that time, because we can see how high art, literature, and classical models are really respected in that time. Every single writers and artists were very respected. And that is all for the relations between the poems and the theme. Alright? That is all from us. Thank you.